Chapter 20. April was only a few days away, but San Bernardino County was locked in a miserable spring. Gloomy overcast covered the sky and engulfed the mountains in a thick, cottony haze. A sharp, painful headache accompanied John. He was tired, ready to finish his work and travel home. However, he persevered and the hours dragged forward. As the last duty of the day, he walked toward Rebecca's room. A strong, deep voice came from her area. "This is a good place for you to be. We'll continue to take wonderful care of you." The voice was familiar. It continued to speak. "Rebecca, we're here to assist you in any way we can." John's heart rate quickened. He approached the open door and his presumption was confirmed. Rebecca sat at the table, and next to her sat Dr. 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗓. A large lump constricted John's breathing. He could almost see those dark eyes staring ruthlessly into Rebecca's soul. "Hello, Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗢𝗓, he said. Those eyes, they were still focused on Rebecca. They didn't move, but the president said, "Welcome, Dr. Sanders. Miss Brownell, if you'll excuse me, I need to speak with him. I've enjoyed our visit. Thank you for your time." Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗢𝗓 rose, placed his hand over Rebecca's and said, "If you have any concerns, come and speak directly to me, anytime." He turned towards the door, the twisted smile still lingering on his lips. John's stomach ached with frustrations. Out in the hallway, Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗢𝗓 closed Rebecca's door, then spoke. "She's been the chosen topic of discussion among many people these last few months." Despite the throbbing headache, John's mind raced for sensible words. "She's made remarkable progress." "That depends on who's speaking," Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗢𝗓 said. "There's a need for us to be careful and mindful in regards to her situation here. Well, I certainly hope I'm helping that take place." "As do I." Once again, the strong, dark eyes pierced John. They were searching, hunting inside for any hidden secrets. "I'd like to observe one of your therapy sessions with her." The pain in John's head sharpened. "Today?" "Unfortunately, I don't have the time. Not today, but soon." John wanted to push the horrible encounter away, push it back as far as he could. "Should we plan on a day, perhaps sometime next month?" "I'll just show up sometime." A minor smile disturbed the man's grim appearance. "Don't worry. I just want to see how you're doing with her." Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗢𝗓 walked down the hall, and heavy knots formed in John's stomach. His head stung with pain. He searched his mental collection of resources, exploring acceptable presentations and feeling uneasy about Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓's next impulsive visit. When he approached Rebecca, his fears of the future were put aside. Instead, there was an immediate need to learn about the conversation that had just transpired. John sat down at the table and she smiled at him. "How are you?" he asked. "Fine. Is everything okay?" "Yes. How was your visit with Dr. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓?" "Good. He's a nice man." "Nice. Really? What makes you say that?" "He asked me a lot of questions. Wanted to make sure that everything was okay." "Really? Tell me what he asked you." "He asked if I was happy with the care I was receiving." "Did he ask specifically about those who help you?" "Sure." John, anxious for an answer, pressed his words together. "What did he say?" "I don't know. He talked to me about you. Asked if I thought you were helpful in responding to my needs." "And what did you say?" A smile spread across her face. "I said you were fine." "What else did he say?" Did he ask? "He told me that everyone here cared about me. They were doing their best to make sure that I was getting the best treatment available." "That was what he talked to you about?" "Yes. He was very concerned, very nice. It's good that I'm here." "Did he say anything about future goals? Did he mention any preparations for you to leave Clearcreek?" "When he asked me about our sessions together, I told him that you spent a lot of time talking to me about going somewhere else. What did he say? I asked him if I had to leave here. And what did he say? He asked me what I wanted. And you said I wasn't sure. John frowned. So that's what you said. He asked me if I thought I still needed to be here. And I said I wasn't ready yet. He said that we don't need to rush things. I can go at my own pace. Really? He said if I needed anything at all, I should come directly to him. That I, like all the other residents, are his number one concern. He was kind. What's wrong? Nothing. John lied. He stood up from the table, turned his back on Rebecca, and faced the open door. The plague of questions returned. How could she speak highly of Dr. Gravers? Could she really not see what type of man he was? Or was Rebecca seeing something he couldn't see? Too much was unclear. In an effort to understand it, he recoiled his thoughts, but then they seemed to pound painfully, like vibrations in his head. You sure you're okay, Dr. Sanders? Rebecca asked. He turned toward her and used a smile as a protective mask. Certainly. But something wasn't right. Dr. Gravers' words may have appeared innocent, but they were wrong. Too much emphasis was being placed on his patient's wants. It was fitting for the president to converse with Rebecca, to talk with her about her thoughts, her feelings, her situation. But why the false idea that she could remain at the hospital for as long as she wanted? That was incorrect. No patient should have that type of power. Clearcreek was not a housing facility. It was a hospital. The purpose was to help heal the patients, then help them move on. John didn't sense that Dr. Gravers was pushing Rebecca along. John's views on Rebecca's illness and her needs had not been acknowledged. Now, even Rebecca had been approached, had been asked about her situation, but administration had not spoken to John. They had not asked for his opinion. The fury in his mind was calling him forward. He had to address the problem. Something needed to be done, something more powerful than words, an action, an achievement, a triumph that would prove to Rebecca and himself that she was ready to advance. Suddenly, John knew what she needed to do. He returned back to the table and stood above her. Where's your blanket? What? Where's Robert's blanket? Someplace safe? You don't need it anymore. Yes, I do. Why? John asked. You're done with those things. It's time to move on. She lowered her head and stared at the ground. I don't want to talk about it. You don't need that blanket anymore. I do, she repeated. Why? Because you think Robert will be coming back? She looked up at John. Anger filled her eyes. He slid back into his seat. Let's talk about Robert. Rebecca grabbed a book from off the table and began tracing the cover with her index finger. If you stay here, you're alone, John said. There isn't a Robert anymore. What do you have here? Nothing. If you leave, you'll have a chance to find real meaning in your life. Maybe Robert will come back. She didn't sound convinced. Is that what you think? There was no reply. Her finger continued to trace around the image of a brown bear. Rebecca. Her fingers curved over the book's cover. Look at me, John said. She did. Is that what you think? She twisted her head and lowered her eyes. I don't know. There's something I've failed to do. It should have been done months ago. John took a deep breath and dreaded what he was about to say. We need to talk about some things. You need to understand some things about Robert. Rebecca looked at the ceiling. Let's talk about something else. We need to talk about this. I regret we haven't discussed it sooner. It's not going to change things. What do you mean? I know what you're going to say, and you're doing it because you think it'll make me want to leave. I just want to talk about things that are true and real. Well, I don't want to talk about it. About what? About Robert? She drew her hands up to her ears. Stop saying his name. Where did Robert go? I know what you're trying to tell me. What? Anxiousness filled John's voice. What do you think I'm trying to tell you? What I already know? Then say it. I don't want to. Rebecca. He paused, trying to manage his emotions. Can you say it? No. She closed her eyes. Misery covered her face. Her shoulders shook as if from some invisible force. Slowly, she let the words out. Dr. Sanders, I know Robert's not real. Thank you, he said softly. She opened her eyes and he added, I'm glad to hear you say that. She shook her head, her face pulled tight in a frown. Everyone wants me to understand why I'm here. Why? Why does it matter? Because it's time for you to heal. It's time for you to get better, and time for you to release the blanket. She folded her arms and leaned back in her chair. Not yet. Why are you still holding on? She pressed her lips together and stared at John for a spell, then added, Because I miss him. He also folded his arms and leaned back in the chair, mirroring her, while trying to make sense of what he should do. What did Robert mean to you? She rested her elbows on the table, then placed her head against her clutched hands. He comforted me. I loved him and he loved me. I still like to think about him. Rebecca, it's time to let go of those things. Holding on to that blanket, that's not good. You're clinging to it, thinking it can lead you back into a world that doesn't exist. It's a false hope. Can you see that? You're embracing something that isn't there. She closed her eyes. He spoke softer. Do you want Robert to come back? She opened her eyes but didn't look at him. I think about it sometimes. You can't move forward until you're ready to let go of the past. What difference does it make? It reminds me of him and I like remembering him. Why does it matter? You do it because you feel rewarded. You receive some type of gratification in remembering what he brought you. But all you do when you hold that blanket is support a lie. The harshness was not what John had intended. He tried to alleviate the tension his statement caused. The blanket had a purpose. I can understand that. But now it's time to move on. Dr. Sanders. She lifted her head and squared her shoulders back. I don't think you understand me. I'm trying to, Rebecca. But he knew his own weaknesses were holding him back. So he spoke candidly. You're not as different from everyone else as you want to be. I might not see babies that aren't really there, but I still have to learn to discern what's there and what's not. She shook her head. What does that mean? I'm struggling with the truth, just like you do. It might not be the concrete physical things that I'm challenged with, but it's other things. Her eyes softened. Like what? Well, perhaps some of the things in my life aren't as important as I believe they are. Sometimes certain things get all my time and energy, only because I perceive that those things are vital and have meaning. But what if they don't? What if I'm focusing on things of no value? What if some things don't matter as much as I think they do? My struggle might not be with things right in front of my face, but I still have to make some determination in my mind of what reality really is. She shook her head again. If you're trying to help me, you're not. You're making things worse. Rebecca, Robert is not what's keeping you here. And it's not because you like Clearcreek. It's not even because you're scared of what's out there. You don't want to leave here because you're scared of you. You're scared of what you can become if you leave. Nothing's expected of you here. But if you leave, suddenly you need to make something of yourself. You're unsure about whether or not you can really do that. And that is what terrifies you. You don't have confidence in yourself. You don't believe you can reach your destination. But I'm fine here. Dr. Graver says I can stay here for as long as I need to. And live a life where people keep directing you, telling you what you need to do, and determining your daily schedule and tasks. Well, that isn't how it is. You may think you've created a life for yourself here, but this version of life is not accurate. You've got to go out there to understand the truth. You've no idea who Rebecca is, but you can't learn that until you get out in the real world. She rose from the table. I'm not giving you the blanket. You're going to have to let go of it in order to heal. She shook her head. I already told you I'm staying here. John stood up to face her. I care about what happens to you. She walked past him toward the window. I've already told you.